Phos is like, that was a nice song. And he's like, I'm giving you my deathbed confession. Were you prepared for Brongo's death? Because I was not. Well, it's finally over now. We can rest now. So, let's talk about this chapter. Now, let's start with the title. The title is Houseki no Kuni, or Land of the Lustrous in English. And that is so funny. Ichikawa is such a troll, because this is the land of the lustrous, or the country of jewels. That is the title's name. And it's so funny, because you'd think that the title would refer to the gem society that Kongou built. But no, it's this place. The place where the gem souls come to rest. Now, the chapter starts off with a water droplet that sort of falls on Brongo and kind of bounces off, and I think this is supposed to really get us into the mood that Brongo is dying. Brongo is impermanent. He is a machine, and unlike Phos and the rocks, he will someday decay, and that is today. The chapter says in a far future, of course, there's also mention of a time skip, that the new era is starting of the illustriouses, or the gems, and the thing is that Brongo is not a part of that. This new era starts with Brongo's death, and that's why I think we start back here from the last chapter. Now, Brongo knows that he's dying, and that he's going to be unable to move soon, and another thing is that there's this little pedal that's by Brongo, and at first I didn't realize what this was, but anytime Brongo talks or interacts with Phos, it falls off and a bug places it back on him, and I think that's supposed to indicate that he's been sleeping on and off for a while, which is kind of like Kongou with the Gem Society, so I wonder if that's mimicking it a little bit. This goes into the fact that he's very old, so this chapter very emphasizes that he's old. He's not like the other rocks or characters, and he's basically giving everything he needs to say before he needs to go. It's basically what he's doing. So he finally confesses, he's like, I'm going to talk right now. He's like, the Lunarians asked me to do it. The Lunarians asked me to do all of this. And we finally get to hear Phos's first word of the chapter, which is Lunarians, with a question mark, because Phos is a minuscule little piece. It's been a very long since we've seen Phos, and Phos is even smaller than before, and continues to get smaller throughout the chapter. But this shows that Phos's memory loss is extensive, and Phos's vocal pattern is also changing, but I'll talk about that later. Bronco sort of reacts in sort of a little frustration because he knows that Phos doesn't remember anything, and that Phos is different now, and he's like, I'm just gonna monologue, is how I translated it in mine. And so he's just really talking to himself. He is talking to Phos, and this information is for Phos because he needs to get it out, but he's talking to himself because Phos doesn't really know the context of what he's speaking on. Then Brongo says that he's at peace, that he has happy that he fulfills his job, and that's all he really wanted to do. We can speculate exactly what his job was, obviously to take care of Phos, because that's what he said before, but I think it was also to usher into this new age of rocks or jewels that were sent here, these souls or something that's in the pebbles or something that are being sent to this plane. Now, this also means that the Lunarians knew of this place, which Acmea, in his first meeting with Phos, did mention a place that sounded like this. This is in chapter 54 in the, dinner scene where he's talking with Phos for the first time, and he mentions that there's a far-off place where souls go in a certain point in the universe where that's where they end up. And this is that place. It's been foreshadowed this whole time, but none of us really thought too much about it. And it is a Buddhist concept. We'll get there in a minute. I honestly still don't know what to think about Brongo being ordered by the Lunarians to do this, because it does change his character a bit. Because previously he was like, oh, I just found this seed that happens to be the thing that the Lunarians wanted to give you, and I guess we should have been a little sus, but I liked thinking that Brongo did this all genuinely and not for a purpose or something that he wanted to do, but this also means that his compassionate actions also reflect on the Lunarians, which makes their character more complex, and by Lunarians, of course, we mean Acmea. So Acmea did want to bring Phos to this paradise, and I don't know how to feel about that. I do still like Brongo, even though his actions are a little less, altruistic now, because we know that he was doing it because he wants the fulfillment of his job, but it's very interesting. And I think that this shows, the little bit of human desire in Brongo, too, because he's kind of saying the things that Phos said in the last chapter of, oh, he's at peace now because he was able to complete his job, and that's what he wanted to do. And it kind of shows the human desire of wanting a purpose and seeking out a purpose in life and fulfilling that purpose. And the reason why Brongo's happy in the next panel, Phos asks him, are you happy? And Brongo replies, yes, I'm happy. Also, Brongo's canon name is Boo Boo. I am not used to calling him that yet. I know that the other translator called him Pitapat, but the original Japanese clearly says Boo Boo, and so I believe that is his canon name, even though it's very goofy, and I feel like it's too cutesy for him, but that's his name. I'm gonna call him Bronco for the rest of the video because I'm still not used to it and still coming to terms with it, but I do believe his canon name is Boo Boo. Take that information as you will. Now, Bronco says that he's happy, which is good because it shows that his fulfillment in a purpose, which is kind of the whole message of Houseki no Kuni, or a partial message, is that we, as humans, we desire a purpose. I assume you're a human watching this video. I could assume wrong. You could be a robot like Bronco, but I'm assuming you're a human. Maybe you have a little bit of human in you like Bronco. But I think that this story really shows that a part of human desire is that desire for a purpose and the desire for fulfillment of that purpose, and I guess feeling like your life wasn't for nothing. And so I think that Bronco's happiness here is because of that. And it's kind of a different happiness from Bronco to Phos, because Phos is just happy to exist now because they've achieved peace. And it shows a difference of like human and Phos and stuff like that. And again, this is sort of contrasting and paralleling Phos and Bronco, because Bronco is a lot like Phos now, or how Phos previously was, because now Bronco is the odd one out in the society, and he's older, he's wiser, he's the older and wiser one. Phos is no longer like that. It's kind of interesting because he's kind of alienated from the society as well. Of course, the society's nice to him, but he's his own unique thing. It's kind of interesting. I would love to know more about Bronco's character, because he is a very interesting character. But yeah, he's happy now. But is that happy from his purpose? Is that happy from getting to this paradise? It probably is a mix of those things, but yeah. Then Bronco sort of starts telling his story. Kind of, maybe it's like life flashing before your eyes before you die or something. He was talking about how he was born as a useful tool. That's how I translated. The other translation is a little different, saying that he was born as a tool and nothing more than that. It's very interesting because in a way that's kind of like purpose. Although Kongou, I guess, relates more to this as a machine because he was literally built for this purpose. So I don't know if it's linking to the fact that Phos just wanted to be used by people. In fact, that's a lot of the characters just wanted to find a purpose and use for their community. I feel like it could be a parallel for that. And there's a danger in only thinking of yourself as a tool and usefulness to others. And I think that's why he's happy now, is because he's not viewed that way. He's just viewed as a person who he is with the Pebbles. I kind of mentioned this in my other video, but that's the nice thing about the Pebble society and where they are now, is that they just view the people they're with as the people they care about, as the people they want to be with. They don't view them in a utility sense because they don't need anything. They don't need anything to live. And so they're just there to bond with each other and have this lovely community. And they're not using people for their utility or how they can get ahead or anything like that. It's just simply to be with the other people and be in a community, and that's what makes it a wholesome environment, and that's what makes it a paradise. And now Bronco says, now look at me where I've made it a paradise. That clearly shows that it clearly shows the toolness, the utility of the society he was in before as a worse thing than where he is now, of course, paradise, where people just care for him as a being, as someone. They don't care that he's a tool, they care that he's there with them, and that's kind of why Phos is just sitting there talking to him, or creating songs, or playing. It's very nice like that. Another thing is that we kind of do these jobs and these works and these purposes for praise, or to be thanked by people, or to know that our life had an impact on someone. And so Bronco saying, like, I really truly did a good job, didn't I? And Phos praising him for that, it makes him really happy. And he reads up, we do things for other people. We do things to see other people happy. And we do things to progress other people as well as ourselves, I guess. But that's why Bronco's happy, is because he was able to make an influence on Phos and the others and make it to this wonderful place where there is this wonderful community. Then we get to the sad bit, when I can no longer move, pray for me. That way I can be with Mom again. I was really sad at this moment because Bronco's my second favorite character after Phos, of course. I did not expect Bronco to die. I don't know why that wasn't on my radar. He's an impermanent creature compared to the rest, because he's a machine, so this probably was going to happen. But he's no longer going to move, he's decaying, his body is going away, and he asks Phos to pray for him. And Phos says, I'll do it, and then I don't know how to do that, but I'll try my best. And this, I think, is in contrast to Antark, and in fact, some of the wording here kind of remind me some stuff from Antark, just because Antark and Phos had a very intentionally worded conversation when they were, storing stuff. I think Antark was putting Phos back together in winter duty, and they were talking about being able to do things and trying to do things, and Phos was like, I'll only do what I can do, and Antark was like, that's why you can't do anything else or something. I don't remember the exact wording. But Phos here is saying that they don't know how to do that, but they're going to try their very best anyway. And that's character development. That's different from what they said back then, because they said that they can just try what they do, but they try what they're best at. And it shows that they won't even try things that they think they can't do, and that's why it's different. So it's nice now to see that Phos is willing to try things. I think because Phos is in a more secure environment where they know if they mess up that there won't be any screaming or yelling or anything like that. Because, you're less likely to try things if you're going to get scrutinized for failure, and failure is just a part of life. That's kind of a lesson for another thing. But we hear Phos is willing to try things that they don't know what to do, and they're willing to be honest about it because they're comfortable in the environment they're in, and I think that's why this place is called paradise, because it's ultimate comfortability, it's ultimate peace. And Brongo says, he uses the same word that Antark used when they got taken to the moon, the last word that Antark said, and he said, "I'm counting on you," is how I translated it. There's a few ways you can also translate it. So then Brongo sort of sends Phos away after he's sort of said everything that he wants to do. He calls over a butterfly creature to pick up Phos and take Phos to the newly blooming flower. Now keep this in mind. At the beginning of the chapter, it said that this is the start of the era for a new gem society. Think about that. They're going to go take Phos to a blooming flower that has a gem in it. Now, they call it the dawn-colored flower, which this is correct. I'm glad. This was one thing I thought I might have gotten wrong in my translation, but I was right on this. It is a dawn flower is how I translated it. Now, dawn is the first appearance of light in the sky before sunrise. And the reason why this is significant is it's kind of like a new start. It's a new morning. It's a new day. This is the symbol of the new era that is starting. But first, let's hear Brongo's last words, which is the song that he made about paradise, and it's him finally drifting away. Now, this is where we get the lore of the paradise, the location that he brought Phos to. And don't you know, Ichikawa, it's a Buddhist concept. Of course, what else would it be? Like I said, Acme alluded to this place when he first met with Phos. I'm gonna butcher this name, but it's in the Avatamsaka Sutra, and it describes a place where there is a universe on a single flower, or your specific universe on a single flower, and it says that there's a bank of flowers on a planet of just with a bunch of beautiful flowers, and each flower has a universe inside of it. And I think it's supposed to be sort of like, at least the one in Houseki no Kuni, is supposed to be like the people's souls, or the characters' souls, and their being as a flower, as the universe. And it being crystals or gems is supposed to link to that. Brongo says the gems in the crystal are the gems. He says kareda, which is the plural form of him in Japanese, and that has only been used to discuss the gems in the series. And so he's saying that the gems, actually, it was also done for all of humanity. So he's saying that all of humanity, including the gems, are the crystals in the flowers. And I think representing human souls, or the human lives that we've seen in the story. Kind of funny, but in the original Japanese, I like how the translator did it for this one, but he speaks all Japanese and all this complicated kanji, and then he says it in English, and the translator translated it with him saying it in English, and then saying like "Tres magnifique" or something, and I assume that's French, which is kind of funny. Just to show that he did switch up languages at the end. I guess I'll talk about the language difference between Phos and Brongo right now. Phos and Brongo have always been different on a language level since the very first time Brongo was introduced, with Phos speaking really formally in their god form and Brongo speaking very informally. Brongo still speaks fairly informally here. His vocal pattern hasn't changed as much. The difference is that Phos speaks in only hiragana, which is exactly like their kid self that they used to be. I mean, when they first were born. I pointed this out in my 106 video, I think? I don't remember. But that Phos's vocal pattern when they were in the scene where we get to see where they were born for the first time, they only spoke in hiragana. So this is going back to that, with them returning to even babyer Phos than we are used to. In complete contrast to that. Like, Brongo hasn't changed vocally that much, but he's speaking, when he did his song, there was so much kanji in there. I literally was like, no, Bronco of all the kanji. How am I gonna explain this? Like, he's using very complex words and hard to understand, like, scientific terms, and it's like just all this amount of kanji, which really contrasts Phos only speaking in hiragana. It's really interesting because, again, I said how Bronco reminded me a little bit of, like, God Phos before this, because God Phos spoke like this, or God Phos spoke with so much kanji, so much eloquently worded things, all these things, and now Bronco is more like that. Of course, he spoke like this before, but he was a lot more casual. I think now, like, maybe with age, I don't know, but he's just speaking in such a manner that is not meant to be understandable by Phos, and that's why I say it's a monologue. It's him talking to himself, because he knows that Phos doesn't understand it, because he's, like, saying all this stuff, he's wording all these things, and Phos is like, that's great, what a lovely song. Phos doesn't understand. That's okay. Phos is happy as they are, even if they can't understand the severity of what Bronco is talking about. And then Bronco dies, casually, because Phos calls out to him. Phos says boo-boo, because that's his canon name, apparently, and he doesn't respond, and Phos flies away to where we'll go next. And the petal is placed on Bronco, and it stays there. And I think that's supposed to show that he's also kind of dead, because the bug kept having to bring the petal back. It's kind of morbid in that sense, but Bronco was alive in the sense that he kept flicking the petal away. He's like, no, I'm here, I'm talking, I'm all this stuff, but now the petal is staying still, and the bug flew away, because he's dead. It's not going anywhere. Kind of a nice image of it, I guess. Then Phos flies away and meets with the other Pebbles. Yay! Our other rock friends. And this is the beginning of the new era. This is the people. And Phos comes over to see the new flower blooming. And here's the thing, guys. Let's review the facts. This is a Buddhist, like, afterlife where all the souls are in flowers, and the souls are represented by gems in this version of the Buddhist afterlife. And not afterlife, I guess, like collection of universes, because they call them universes. This stone, I think, looks exactly like the one that's on the cover for Volume 1. I mean, on the spine. And now I'm wondering if all of the rocks on the spines of the covers are supposed to be the souls of the characters in this place. So crazy, so crazy, so crazy. I wonder if Lunarians are represented by pearls, because the Lunarians have to be here too, right? Because if it's all human souls. And the thing is, I showed this to some people weren't convinced, but look, it's a square, clearly a square engraving on the side, and I think that the rock on the cover is a different angle of it, but it's a square, and then it's indented for four things. I think looks exactly like it. I think this is it. This is the rock that's on the side of the cover, and this is Phos's universe. The rock that's blooming right here. The flower that's blooming right here. The one that has the stone in it. The ones that Phos is getting close to is Phos's universe. This is the start of the new era of gems. This is the beginning of the story. And then Phos falls onto their universe, and shattered pieces fall into the universe that Phos will get to experience in the new era of gems. And that's why they say that Phos's fragments will turn into a comet and brighten someone's day, because Phos's brittleness here is actually a strength. And that strength is that their brittleness, their pieces, are falling into the other universes and being a light to the people in that universe. And of course, the one that they fall into is their own. And it's supposed to brighten Phos's mood. And the significance of this is that this is a new era. It's going to repeat it. I think this is circular storytelling. It's going to repeat with Phos in a new life. But the ending says that Phos will stay as Phos. Phos will as Phos does is how it was translated. I said Phos will continue as Phos because it is significant that Phos in this new era, I think, will go down a different path. I think they won't get all of the materials. They won't give in to the temptation of improving themselves. I think that they'll stay as they are. And that was the main thing, the main driver for their unhappiness was their wanting to get better, to always find fault in themselves. And I think with the piece falling into Phos's universe, that it will give Phos a brighter life to live, and that they'll be able to be happy in their own circumstances, even though Phos's circumstances are sucky. But they're even more sucky now, because Phos is the tiniest they've ever been, but they're the happiest they've ever been. They're the most brittle they've ever been, they are the happiest they've ever been. I think Houseki no Kuni's message here is that you can be happy no matter your circumstances. You can be happy no matter how you were born. That's such a lovely message, in my opinion. And it also shows, like, Phos's brittleness is sort of a strength, at least in this context, where they did break off pieces, but those pieces went to go help other people. And I think this is also a clear distinction of Phos's suffering was worth it in a way, because it was able to brighten their new life, or hopefully Phos in the new era will lead a better life than the Phos of our story. I said keep in mind that it was Dawnflower, and that it emphasized a new era because I'm saying that it goes back to the beginning of the story. It's when Phos sees light for the first time. That's what it is. Dawn, that's what it means. When Phos sees a light in the sky for the first time and looks up, it's the beginning of the journey. It's the beginning of their life. Hopefully a better one. I kind of think that the Phos continues as Phos is hopefully that Phos's journey will be different from the one that we've seen. I don't know. Of course, it's a kind of an open-ended story ending, but that's what I hope. But I think that's the significance of the stone that Phos falls onto being the stone that's on the side of Volume 1, because this is going back to Volume 1. This is the start of the story. This is when we get to see the universe of Phos, and hopefully it'll be a better one. Hopefully it'll be a better future, because Phos's suffering wasn't for nothing. Phos's suffering led up to this day where they can brighten the future of their own. I don't know. This is kind of sort of my interpretation, but it's sort of supposed to say that the story wasn't for nothing. And that, again, Phos had a very, very terrible life. Of course, we lived through it with them. We cried with them. We got angry with them. Phos had a very bad life. It was very depressing. Of course, the reason why we kept reading is because we all related. We all knew how that was feeling, and because we seek out stories that show how we view the world. We seek out stories that validate the feelings we feel. And what Ichikawa is saying in this final chapter, there can always be a better future. We might think that it can only get worse. That's all we've been saying. Every single chapter, we're like, it can only get worse. But there can be a light at the end of the tunnel. There can be a big, bright comic that will brighten our day. There can be a happy future. No matter how many hardships we go through, there can always be something that lifts us up. There can always be something that can brighten our day. No matter how hard life gets, no matter how much suffering we go through, no matter how much depression creeps in, there's always a reason to continue going, because eventually, it might be 10,000 years, it might be more than 10,000 years, but eventually, life will get better. And I think that's what Ichikawa's message is. It's a very exaggerated message, but because literally 10,000 years, over 10,000 years, we don't know how long it's been, but it got better for Phos. It can get better for you too. I love this story so much. Like, literally. I understand it really well because this is exactly how I view the world, honestly. I view the world as a sucky place. I view it as a place where people can hurt you, where scary things can happen, where you can feel so unsafe that you feel like you need to destroy things in order to become safe. I relate to Phos so much because I felt those feelings before. I've been in Phos's shoes, although it's past tense for me. For me, this is exactly sort of how I see my life and the journey that I've gone through as a person. Especially with the message that you can be happy despite the way that you were born. Because there are things that are not our fault. There are things that are out of our control, that we had no say in. And that's usually things that we're born with, or circumstantial things that we didn't get to choose. For me, I am deformed. I plan on making a video on it at some point, and I plan on making a video specifically talking about deformity in Houseki no Kuni. But that was a huge struggle for me growing up, just thinking I was lower than other people because I was born with a deformity. And I see Phos as sort of a carrier of that, because Phos is different from everyone else. They had a low hardness scale, and the lore book and art books emphasize that Phos was born different from the other gems, and that Phos didn't fit into the society, and that Phos didn't fit the molds that were placed in society because they were different from everyone else. I believe everyone feels that way in some way. All of us are unique. There's no such thing as normal. Each of us have things that make us different, that make us stand out. And for me, that was being deformed and all the other emotional baggage that I carry. But I'm still here. I've still made it into a place where I can be in society. And I've made it to a peace, in a sense. And I see it the same way as the journey that Phos went through. Because life got a lot worse before it became better for me. And we see that in Houseki no Kuni, right? Of course, the story focuses on the worst part, but literally thousands and thousands of years of suffering, over 10,000 years of suffering. And Phos still was able to attain peace in the end. Phos was still able to be happy in the end. And it may take a long time. It may take work. It may take needing to change everything about yourself. It may need to kill the human part of you. There's so many good parallels in Houseki no Kuni. But peace is something that can be obtained. This sounds dubious, I'm sorry. But a contentness, a joy in life is something that's possible. I believe it's possible for anyone. It would be hard. It may take years. But just like Phos, it can be achieved, I think. I don't know if that made sense to any of you, or if people get mad at me saying that, because you can make a lot of excuses for it. You can say that you're 3.5 hardness, you can say that you don't contribute to the society, you can say that you failed at getting Cinnabar a job, you can say that someone rejected you, you can say that all these circumstantial things, all these things that you can't change, all these reasons why you can't be happy, all these reasons why you can't be satisfied with your life, all these reasons why you can't be content. But the truth is that there was always a bright light, and there is just a happiness in existing with others and being able to create songs and play with people, which is exactly what Phos says on the last page, is let's play. Phos is just content being their small little self, their fragile little self, with the people in their community who embrace them and love them for who they are. They don't care about Phos's shortcomings. They don't care about Phos's past. They just care about Phos. And that's why Houseki no Kuni is just such a lovely story, and I love it so much. And this is peak writing to me. This is everything I've ever wanted. And it's number 2. I love X Hunter more. I'm sorry. I just want to say there are some panels where you can see Phos looking at a comet throughout the story, and we probably just need to go back and look if there's any more, but I know someone found a page on chapter 73 where Phos is looking at a comet, and it takes up like half the page, and that's like more significant now. So I just wanted to bring that to attention. I really wanted to make this video better than how I originally recorded it, so I'm going to link 2 videos in the description and at the end card. One is going to be my reaction to the chapters when they dropped, and the second one is going to be the audio that I scrapped for this video, if you're curious for the mess that I sounded like before. And I did mention some things that I forgot to mention here, so you can check that out if you want. It's not edited well, but I'll put it up because it is something I recorded. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will make more Houseki no Kuni videos, even though the series has ended. I have a bunch of ideas for analysis I can do, so I hope you stay tuned for that. And I'm glad that we got to go on this journey together. And I hope that your life turns up like Phos too. I hope that your life will get better, and that you can hope for a better future, and that you can be happy, just as you are.